Thank you for tuning in and welcome back to the Sandwich of Coherency. So, in a strange twist of things lately, there's been a whole lot these past few weeks, months, about the rights of parents and what rights do the parents have to their children. Are your children even yours anymore? I mean, if a school decides that they don't like what you are telling your child in many Democrat liberal cities, they've put in place rules to be able to take your child. If you have a 3-year-old and your 3-year-old says, it's your son, your 3-year-old son comes in one day and he tells you, I want to be a girl just like mommy, which is what a lot of kids do. A lot of boys want to emulate their mothers. A lot of young girls want to emulate their fathers, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. The problem is 99.99999% of the time, that's just a child being a child. And when a child says that, there are places now where if you don't run with that right there, if you don't run with that, they've put in place rules to come take your child. But I ask, what if your child says, I'm Batman? What if your child says that I don't want to go to school? I don't need to. What if your child says that, no, he doesn't want to eat vegetables? No, I'm not going to do this. No, I'm not going to do that. Which things do you pick and choose? The child is mentally adult enough to understand. And so this comes down to the fact that you've had Democrats, many liberals pointing out that your child is not your child. A child is not just what the parent's child. It's the whole community's child, and the community should be allowed to have a say-so in what the child learns, how the child is raised. No, not just the parent. No, the community needs to approve of what you are telling your child. So parents have been trying to exercise their rights as parents. And the thing is the government is attempting to stop that. Over these past few years, we've had actual liberal leaders putting forth, bills and whatnot to stop homeschooling, or if parents were going to homeschool, it had to be curriculum that the schools that they are not attending approve of. Pardon me. So you've got states now that are attempting to put forth parental bills of rights. And with these parents trying to have their rights, people are losing their minds. But let me give you an example of things. Take what's the Biden administration's Department of Education, and the fact that they wanted to get rid of charter schools because they believe that charter schools are racist and they create division, and all they do is prevent African Americans, because again, it's always just black people, from getting a good education, is what they're saying. Despite the fact that most charter schools exist primarily in low-income areas so that children in low-income areas can get good educations. And they spun that to people, and people are like, yes, these schools are only for white people, despite the fact that a majority of the students are black and Latino, just minorities and low income in general. Apparently that's wrong. So you take what happened in Virginia. I believe it was Kemp and Sears ran on the platform of parental rights, education, and people on the left lost their minds. Same thing in Florida. People lost their minds. New York, California. The idea that parents want to have a say-so in their child's education and know what grown men and women are telling impressionable children. Apparently that's bad according to the left. Think about this. Some grown man or woman wants to talk to your 5-year-old about sex. Not sex education, but about sex. They want to tell your 5, 6, 7-year-old about their sex life. Bro, teach English. All right? Teach maths. But no. Anatomy, things like that. If that's your job as a teacher, yes, you should teach those things. But sex? I would leave that to the parents. But all of this brings us to the point at hand, which is Wisconsin, which doesn't really get a lot of attention from us, but we're going to give them some today. So Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers, a Democrat, of course, vetoed some 24 Republican-sponsored bills on Friday, including one dubbed the Parents' Bill of Rights that would have given parents more say in their kids' education. Okay? Now what it says is, Evers on Friday signed 15 bills into law and vetoed 28 others, including Assembly Bill 963, which would have established a number of parental rights relating to decisions regarding a child's religion, medical care, and education, whilst creating a cause of action if these rights were violated. The Parents' Bill of Rights would have allowed children to set out certain lessons that parents find objectionable on grounds of religion or personal conviction, whilst also giving parents the right to review any instructional materials used in the classroom and to request notice when certain subjects will be taught or discussed. The legislation would have also allowed parents to determine what names and pronouns their children are referred to at school. Might seem innocuous enough, but the reality is that it's very important. There was the story about the mother whom was trying to care for her daughter, whom found out that her child was actually being groomed at school. That was part of a LGBT club that they gave it a different name to keep parents from finding out what it was about. Turns out that they were actually grooming the child. They ended up changing the child's name and giving the child pronouns. Mind you, they changed the child's name without telling the mother. And when the mother found out and attempted to rein this back in, the teacher that had started the whole thing and the school attempted to take the child from the mother. Well, guess what? They failed. The child is still with the mother. The child has expressed that she prefers her original name she was given at birth. She is a girl and is not worried about pronouns or anything like that. And turns out the child had some mental issues because of this ordeal, but is getting better through therapy. But the whole thing points out that the child was being groomed, as you could say. And this is a major problem. A school attempting to take a child. As well, let's remember the situation that happened in California with the doctor that was giving estrogen to a male child in juvenile hall, promising early release because they believe that, well, in their mind, women are less aggressive and it has to do with the amount of estrogen they have. So if we give boys more estrogen growing up, they'll be less aggressive. Let's lower the rate of testosterone in young men growing up. This is going to work out great. There was no scientific basis for this. But hey, let's just go ahead and experiment on somebody's child that we are in the care of because they made some mistakes and we're supposed to keep them safe and healthy until they get out. No. Let's let's experiment on them and not tell the parents. The parents didn't, again, we talked about this before, but the parents didn't find out until the child, because they weren't allowed to see them. But when they finally did, somehow their son grew a pair of tits. Oh boy. So, it goes on in a note explaining his decision to veto the bill. Evers accused lawmakers of using children as political pawns and called the measure divisive. Politicians on both sides of the aisle have to stop using our kids as political pawns, Evers wrote. I'm vetoing this bill in its entirety because I object to sowing division in our schools, which only hurts our kids and learning in our classrooms. Like, yo, this is bad, man. Like, seriously, you should have signed this. I mean, this is not a political thing. Parents have their rights, and the parents went to the politicians, and this is what they told them they wanted. This is not politicians sowing division. This is parents trying to keep politicians out of their homes. Now, Wisconsin State Representative Rick Gundrum, a Republican, as it goes on, he actually co-authored the Bill 963, and he issued a statement responding to the veto, accusing Evers of ignoring the concerns of parents who object to certain ideas, materials, and practice in classrooms. It goes on, this legislation was created after hearing the concerns of many parents who have said their voices are not being heard in their respective school districts, Gundrum said, which is exactly what we're talking about. They're not listening to the parents. Again, we found out throughout the course of the lockdowns that teachers were telling students strange things they shouldn't have been telling them, but then telling them not to tell their parents. And parents found out. Excuse me. And upon this happening, there was a whole big push by the teachers across, these liberal teachers, rather, to not allow parents, either in the home or in the area, whilst the child is learning, because whatever it is they need to teach to this child has to be done in secret. We don't want the parents to find out what we are teaching them. So if this is the case going on just through these Zoom calls, one can only imagine what exactly is happening at the school 8-9 hours a day when the parents are nowhere near to find out. So, I mean, Wisconsin State Senator Alberta Darling, who co-authored the bill as well, said that the legislation amounted to common sense protections for every family and would have given parents clear-cut rights in the state statutes. And there is nothing absolutely wrong. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Absolutely nothing. Parents deserve to know what adults that have been entrusted in the care of their children throughout the course of the day are telling them. That is important to know. It is absolutely important to know. Because guess what? People have many different beliefs and ideals and practices. Education is the same, should be the same across the board for everybody. The basics and whatnot should be what you're learning, what your moral structure is, and the things that are part of your home life are a lot different. People have many different faiths, and they should be respected. And if what you're teaching them doesn't coincide with their faith or their ideals or their beliefs, they should have every right to say that, no, I don't want you teaching my child this. This is something that we will cover at home as a family. This is not for you to talk about. And to think that you should be allowed to, or should be allowed to take my child, or to say that I'm the bad person because I should be the one talking with my child about certain things. For you to say that really shows where your mindset is, and it shows what to me, clearly shows what your intentions are. And that is to take parents out of the process of raising and educating their child. This completely equates to the idea of children being a product of the state. That is literally what they want. They want humans to be breeding machines of products of the state, because that's the reality of where we're heading with it. The idea is that, yes, you will have this child, you will take care of this child, unless we don't like what you're doing. Long story short, you will raise them and teach them what we tell you. If you refuse to, we will take them from you and we will do it ourselves. So essentially, your child is no longer your child. So one is now having to, I would say in the future, we'll have to be deciding, am I having a child so that I can raise my own family, or do I really want to go through the process? Because the reality is I'm just raising another tool of the state. Because if I do something the state doesn't like, they will come and take them from me. And that's an actual reality I think we could head towards at this rate. Because if the idea of parents wanting to be heard and wanting to make sure that they have clear rights and what happens with their children at school, if that's a problem, then as a nation moving forward, we have a very big problem. A much bigger problem than we could have even previously imagined. But again, these are because of the Democrat and liberal ideas. Let's be honest, it's the same as, defund the police. As election time rolls around, they will be clearly trying to turn the tables and say that, no. Well, this is all the Republicans' fault. It's the Republicans that don't want parents to know about what children are being taught. What they'll do is they'll come up with the bill and they'll slip something in it that they know the Republicans will absolutely vote against. And that's how they will say, look, they did that. That's what they did with the police reform bill. But again, like I said, we have elections coming up and we will see what happens. But I thank you for tuning in and we'll catch you next time.